Occasionally, you just have to get back to your roots. And this trip had been long planned. I was to speak at the mysterious Earth Conference in Lytham St. A quick cab to the airport, a few beers to tide over the delay of the inbound aircraft, and soon we were on our way. Breakfast the next morning was a delight. English breakfast is to die for. Bacon just doesn't taste the same in the Czech Republic, neither do beans, and frankly, neither does the toast. So, I enjoyed this first full English breakfast at a hotel in Swindon. And pretty soon we were on our way. We were on our way to Avebury to meet with Rory Duff. The sun had barely risen, and so on arrival at Avebury and discovering that the car park actually wasn't open, we actually sat there and marvelled as the sun came over the hill. We enjoyed this magnificent sunrise, just like perhaps the ancients would have done at this very location. Wondering what to do until the car park actually opened, we decided to take a bit of a drive around, and that's when we discovered that we were of course very close to Silbury Hill, and so a visit there was in order. Neither of us had ever been to Avebury or Silbury Hill, so this was really something for us. Given that I left the UK in 1992 and had real no interest in stuff like this at that time, it seems such a shame that I didn't visit these places back then. But this was an opportunity to dowse, and I realised as I dowsed close to the hill from this location that I was dowsing the Mary and Michael lines. What a thrill that was. And of course I would do the same when we arrived at Avebury and look for the node. There's something very magical about this hill, this location, this piece of earth, and that specialness gets even better when you go to Avebury. Eva and I wandered around these stones in this cauldron, this holy grail of earth energies, in utter amazement. Me, I got my dowsing rod out, of course. Eva took time to feel the energies, to look at the stones, and to see the faces and the shapes coming from those ancient stones. Again, I realised I was dowsing the classic alignment, and it felt quite different to the ones here in the Czech Republic. The ones in the Czech Republic, like the Templar line, they hit you like a brick. They're very strong. They're very raw. This energy is beautiful. It's more subtle. It feels perhaps as if it's been worked with by humanity, and in being worked with, it has gentled and lessened the, let's face it, sometimes quite brutal energies that we experience here in the Czech Republic with the Type 4 alignments. We did have the pleasure of meeting Rory Duff and his wife, and we spent a couple of hours talking about geology and dowsing and looking at his maps that he'd made and all kinds of interesting and fascinating topics with him over a cup of coffee and toasted tea cakes. Another thing that I really miss when I'm here in the Czech Republic. We didn't, of course, have much time, so dowsing was just a case of finding the lines, figuring out which line was which, and having the rod try to point us in the direction of the node, which we never actually found because we didn't have time to actually go there and explore for the node, but I know roughly where it lies. What was really interesting to me was how this whole area is in this cauldron, ringed by this mound of earth. And this struck me as being very reminiscent of the Arthurian tales of the Holy Grail. And I think, along with Rory Duff, who is correct in his assumptions and assertions, that perhaps the Templar Grail was, in fact, earth energy nodes like this site, and that there are many grails, not just one. We were to visit another grail later in our trip. Having spent as long as we could, at Avebury, it was time to move on, and we said our goodbye with reluctance, both to Rory and to the Stones. En route to Waylands Smithy, we found this beautiful village and, of course, a pub. And I had to have my meat pie. I just can't come to England without eating a meat pie, and let me tell you, this one was absolutely delicious. And soon there was very little left of it. Waylands Smithy is a place that really got me started on this entire journey of connecting with the earth. If you've read Chasing the Shaman or the trilogy of experiences, this is where Sue and Stuart took me. This is where, as I meditated amongst the stones, asking questions about whether I should stay in the Czech Republic or not, I heard voices in the distance speaking Czech. And sure enough, when I asked the couple where they were from, they told me, Brno, the city that I live in. To me, this was a sign, a sure sign, that the Czech Republic was the place that I should stay and work with. I just needed to connect with the land. It was also a place I was desperate to show Eva, and I know that Eva really enjoyed it and the energies and the experiences of being there. And perhaps one day we'll make it back again when we have a bit more time and perhaps the weather is a bit nicer, because it was very cold, very breezy, but beautiful blue skies. For me, there was a tinge of sadness because this was where I remember Sue Vincent. This is where I remember the beautiful, kind, magical lady that was in my life for so long and who sadly passed away a few years ago. So for me, this was a pilgrimage for Sue. For Eva, this was a first experience of this site. And as we left, we saw these beautiful birds, the very birds that led Sue and Stuart originally to this site. And that was followed on by a rainbow as we drove to Lytham St. And rainbows became a theme of the weekend, as you will see. It's quite a long and exhausting drive from Avebury to Lytham St. and when we got there we found some of our fellow conference goers in the bar, and so we enjoyed a beer. But the next morning, when the conference started, I took this shot of the outside of the hotel, a nice facility, and also of the room in which the Mysterious Earth conference was being held. It was time to say hello to Neil and some of my other speakers and all of the wonderful, beautiful people that were coming to this incredible meeting of minds. Let me tell you, there was a common theme throughout the weekend, despite what we all spoke about, and that common theme was joyous to behold and listen to. And I really, really enjoyed meeting every single one of the people that were there, and I know Eva did as well. Soon it was time for Neil to kick it off. He showed a video, and then we had a presentation from Sarah Mondiini, and what a hell of a presentation it was, let me tell you. Really made me think, and I think a lot of people would agree that it made everybody there think. And then after lunch it was my turn to do the best job I could talking about the Templar line. Well, in the breaks, it was nice to get outside, and we enjoyed a fish and chip lunch with some people that were there who actually subscribed to my Substack list, and it was really nice to meet them. The weather, however, was pretty atrocious, and I left it to Eva to explore the beach more thoroughly. I think she really enjoyed that. I was inside, talking to people, listening to their presentations and learning from them. When the conference was over, we asked one of the presenters who talked about stone circles where we might go en route to Stansted, and he came up with Arbor. And our thanks go to him, because this was a special place indeed, a happy place. Another cauldron where the land meets the sky, where the sky touches the land, and the stones laid down as if perhaps they'd had a happy time and were resting. We explored this cauldron, this holy grail, and found a type 4 line, male and female, crossing in the middle. As I walked up the hill to approach it, I still couldn't see the stone circle, but the warmth of the female energy line hit me and warmed me up on this bitterly cold morning. The node was somewhere around in the centre of the stone circle, and we spent a lot of time just looking at the landscape, thinking about the context of this holy grail, this cauldron within the landscape, and noting that sometimes there were correlations between the outer rim and the landscape around us. Something we'd learned at the conference to look for from Peter Knight and his wife. I could have spent hours here. Really, the energies were so happy, so wonderful, so delicious. The place was just astounding. And it just sent you into a different world, into a different mode, into a different set of reflections about life and the meaning of life and everything. Unbelievable. I know Eva fell in love with the place. As I walked around dowsing the earth energy lines, I noted that she was laying on the stones, enjoying the energies in her way as I enjoyed the energies in mine. We also examined the stones and we saw some interesting faces and shapes within them. In one instance I was convinced it looked like a turtle or perhaps a serpent emerging from the ground. In another instance, it looked like a snake. And even if this is just our imagination at play, imagination is the engine room of magic, isn't it? And so I do believe that sometimes these stones were selected on purpose. We then headed over to the barrow. I went in. Dizzying energy on the female line. Absolutely dizzying energies here. For me, this was the place of my ancestors. These were my people. These were the people that I owed thanks and love and gratitude to for my line, and I venerated them. From there, driving towards Stansted, we found the Coach and Horses, a beautiful place by the road, and I introduced Eva to the delights of the ploughman's lunch, which we both enjoyed and were filled with. It was nice to see sheep as well. There aren't many sheep in the Czech Republic, but there's tons in that area. And pretty soon, it was all over. We were back at Stansted waiting for our flight back to Brno. Wondering how the weekend had gone so quickly and marvelling at the way we felt. I felt absolutely like my batteries had been charged. I'd connected with my homeland, I'd connected with the earth, I'd connected with other people, as did Eva, and I will be eternally grateful for it. It was a wonderful trip.